Welcome, welcome to Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I'm your host, Megan, and my amazing co host is.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hello. We are your source for messy, imperfect homeschooling. And right now, hopefully, a viable distraction from the world that is crumbling around us. We cannot do anything to restore democracy in the United States, but we can provide some solid homeschool advice, some community, and hopefully a bit of humor to distract you from reality for the next hour-ish of your life.
Yeah, though I will say that I do think it's important that we keep protesting with our dollars, our voices, and our bodies when possible. I don't think that's the only solution. I think there are a lot of other things that need to come into play, but I do think that that is how we try to restore democracy in the United States, especially if you're here in the US and listening. I know that my family will be attending the No Kings Part 2 protest in just a couple of weeks. We'll be in Columbia, Missouri. So if you're around and want to meet up with like-minded folks, I know it's a lot harder to find those like-minded homeschool folks in mid-Mo. Yeah, message me on social media. Maybe we can meet up for the protest with our signs or whatever. And even if not, just know that you're not alone. We might be on different sides of the university campus, but we're all there. All that said, we do definitely need little breaks from the chaos and destruction to maintain like even some tiny semblance of sanity, right? I know mine is hanging by a thread, that phrase more and more with every news report and story out of the US and Europe. It's
Yeah, not good.
yeah.
And I find the Googling to be just positively exhausting too. I mean, I saw a clip not that long ago from Trump's visit to the UK, and it was the Royal Guard there and the band and whatnot. And they were playing the Star Wars song. I'm not a Star Wars fan. Please don't hate me. I've never even seen Star Wars, but I think it's the Imperial March, that like Darth Vader ominous music. Yeah. Right. And he was standing there saluting, and the caption was like, he doesn't even know they're making fun of him, and he's standing there saluting. And I'm like, this cannot be true. But it looked really official. It had like the news border around it and whatever. I mean, it was the clip from the news that was shown on BBC or Sky TV or whatever. They had just done the music over the original music with this thing.
Mhm.
And so, I looked it up and Snopes said, no, this is not true. It didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. But, the comments on the thread were like, yay, this is why we love the Brits. This is fantastic. This, that, and the other thing. It looked very convincing. But it's like, now you can't even trust what you're seeing, that you're like, okay, things are bad. We know they're bad. But how bad? What is actually true versus what is not? And that's another task or another layer on this shit cake that's like even more work. It's a lot.
Well, yeah. And I mean, to your point, right? It is getting harder and harder with AI to know what's true and what's not. I mean, right. Some AI is such poor quality that you can like totally super easily spot it, right? Like weird hands, too many fingers, or things like that. But sometimes it really does take a lot more analysis, right? And research. Like we've been talking in our book group about AI and its impact on education and what that means for us as homeschooling parents. And it's nice to be over on Patreon where you can talk about that and dig in and get more perspectives, because as much as I might really dislike AI and have some real issues with it, it's not going anywhere, and it is getting harder and harder as AI develops and gets better and better to be able to really sort it out. It's just so common now.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really true. But I agree. The book club dialogue has been great. If you're at all keen on joining us, check the show notes for more info. We meet every other Monday evening, US time, Monday evening, and it's a casual bunch. Some people don't even read the book. You can just come and enjoy secular, progressive community, maybe learn something new, maybe share some ideas. Whatever works for you works for us. And we would love to welcome you to book club.
Yep, absolutely, for sure. And again, like you totally don't have to read. We will read, which is unusual for me. I don't always read for book club, but I do for ours because that's kind of my job, but you don't have to. Okay, so anyway, today's topic is socialization. Does that word make you grumble? Or maybe that like deep, resigned sigh of like, here we go again with this socialization nonsense.
They promised me an escape from reality, and now they're going to talk to me about this baloney.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I think most homeschoolers have had their fair share of what about socialization? Like just the ridiculousness. I mean, it comes up even with the people that like see us all the time and know like how awesome my kiddo is. Like it just comes up from outsiders and nosy relatives and neighbors and out of line supermarket cashiers in Megan's case.
Definitely. It has happened. I remember her name and everything. It's been like a decade. And she was like, "Don't you feel like they're missing out?" And I was like, "No, I don't. Have a great day." So anyway, yes. I mean, we did an episode way back in season 1 about socialization. And then we also did an episode in season 1 about why homeschoolers get called weird. But today we're going to be tackling this from a different perspective. We'll talk about the subject in kind of a new and different way. So we'll be getting a little bit more granular, I think, than we have before, digging into vertical and horizontal socialization specifically. So it'll be more information that you can kind of tuck in your toolbox to debunk the knee-jerk socialization objection whenever it comes up. So you'll be all set. But first, we start all of our episodes here with a weekly recap. It's part of our anti-influencer, keeping it real vibe that we love around here. Some weeks are status quo, some weeks are great, and some weeks can't end fast enough. But however it all went down, you'll get the whole truth and nothing but the truth from us, because what's the point of putting out some fake facade that no one else can live up to? So how's your week been, Amanda?
Yeah. So nothing ever goes to plan, right? I thought that I had our fall travel all sketched out, and now we're adding a last minute trip to Missouri to see family. Hence, we'll be in Missouri for the next protest. And that also means that I had to reschedule our family photos. And so, on the one hand, that's unfortunate. On the other hand, I pushed it out by a week, which gives me a little bit more time to figure out what we're going to wear. I'm on the hunt for a black bodysuit that does not quite snatching, because let's be real, I'm not cool enough for snatched anything. But I was thinking that with like a pair of wide leg jeans. And so, yeah, I got to try to figure that out. And then by the time you actually listen to this episode, I will hopefully, assuming all things go the way that I planned, I'll be in Mexico enjoying a points hotel stay near the beach while my kiddo does daily private Spanish immersion lessons. We've been planning this for a little while as a way to try to help take him to the next step in his Spanish language learning. I don't speak any Spanish myself, so I'm really not helpful with that. And he does some online things and stuff like that. But we've just really struggled pulling that together. So we're not that far, right? We live in SoCal, so we're pretty damn close to Mexico. We're going to try doing a little bit more of this thing where we can get him there and get him actually like practicing these lessons. He's supposed to like have like a small lesson, and then they go out and do like a field trip at the supermarket or the park or the beach or go to a restaurant and like actually like practice the things that they talked about and learned. So hopefully that'll go well. I'm really hoping that I'll have a little bit of a chance to like relax and unwind. I'm just like, I could be thinking about what's gone wrong this past week and the fact that the world is a dumpster fire, but I'm looking forward, right? The end of the month is always busy, and like we're wrapping up the unit study that we put out each month and writing the newsletter for the Patreon followers and scheduling our live meetings for the month and all of that kind of stuff. But like, that's done, right? That's end of the week or end of the month madness. And so with all of that sorted, I'm hoping that with my downtime in Mexico, I will finally be able to like dig into this online course that I bought. It's all about like taking better photos with your iPhone. So I really enjoy photography in general. And I definitely took some different classes with real cameras back when real cameras were a thing. And back even when I was like, oh, I'm going to really learn how to use a DSLR and all of that. But let's be real, now I just always have an iPhone with me. And so I actually want like my photos to look better and not just those 5-second video reel things that say like, do this, this, and this. And then you never remember how to actually do it when you're out in real life taking photos. So yeah, hopefully, yep. I'm focusing forward. I'm trying to find my joy where I can. And I might have a lot of margaritas in the meantime. Chips and salsa and margaritas. So yeah, I have high hopes for the coming week. We'll see. Check in with me next week and see what actually plays out. Yeah. Mm. Oh, yeah. How about you? What do you got going on?
Oy. Just kind of more of the same, which is not a bad thing. I mean, when we are displaced and moving and traveling and whatever, sometimes I'm like, I just want to go home. I mean, I'm not complaining about more of the same. We've traveled a bunch over the past year as part of our fleeing the United States process and trying to figure out where we wanted to end up and then sorting out our visas to not go back to the US and all of that. And so sometimes when we have to be out of Portugal for paperwork reasons and whatever, I'm like, I just want to go home. I want to be in my apartment. So I'm living that I'm good, right? Like I'm a-okay with just more of the same, where it's like consistent at bed time. I can put my Netflix on, and I baked banana muffins today in my kitchen because I've got my little canisters with my baking goods here. I'm no complaints about status quo in my world. So today I watched the Sitting Bull documentary on the History Channel, which I'm surprised it took me so long because it came out in May, and I literally had it on my calendar for like the day it came out. We've just been busy, and I kept trying to find a time when we could all watch it together, and it's been really hard. So finally I was like, I'm treating myself to the Sitting Bull documentary and watching it on my own. So this
Was it
morning I
solid?
had a bit of like, what's that?
Was it solid? Like
Y-
pretty
It is.
decolonized and like,
Yes. And so it's one of these things where they have like reenactment actors who are playing that, but then it's all like a lot of voiceover narration and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And so the people who are playing all of the Lakota people are all indigenous actors. And then they cut away to interviews of people like sitting in their library and giving the history and doing the overview and whatever. And I would say probably about 75% of those people are all indigenous scholars, historians, descendants of people that are in the thing that they're talking about. It with like Sitting Bull had these two childhood best friends who went on to fight alongside him for years and fought at the Battle of Little Bighorn and all that. So like one of the people was one of those two best friends' descendants. So yeah, so it was really good. I quite liked that. And we've been to the Battle of Little Bighorn battlefield, which was amazing and meaningful and just so educational, and it's a national park. So kind of tied all that in, which was great. Yeah, Astrid leaves for Spain in a couple of days, which is big. She's going to Spain for 3 weeks. There's a world schooling group that's meeting up for about a month, but she's only going for about 3 weeks, and she's going solo. I will not be there. She's staying with a friend. So that'll be a new adventure for her. And then yeah, I've just been kind of hard at work on pop-up stuff. So I'm hosting a pop-up in Lisbon in November, which we've talked about before. But I scheduled two for next year. I have one in Egypt in March and one in Naples that straddles April into May. And so I've just been working on what we're going to do and where we're going to go and all that good kind of stuff. So I'll put some info about them in the show notes if you're at all interested in joining a world schooling adventure. It's a really fun group. So it'll be good times. But yeah, that's kind of it on my end. A lot of status quo and keeping busy and having fun.
yeah, I love Naples. I We spent, so my husband and I actually got married in Italy, in the southern part of Italy. And so we had to spend like a week in Naples getting all of our paperwork done, like at the consulate and doing all of that. And they get such a bad rap, but we had a really great time. Delicious pizza and delicious pastries and great markets and city culture. Yeah. I really like Naples.
Well, that's it. And you've also got the Blue Grotto nearby and Pompeii nearby. So there's so much stuff that you can do there that's history and nature. And I mean, and then the food and the whole thing. It's going to be amazing. I'm super excited about it. So going to be good. But yeah. But in the meantime, speaking of socialization, world schooling pop-ups are a great way to socialize. You show up to a random place. I mean, we have, I think, like 75 kids coming to the Lisbon pop-up. So it's going to be a really nice group of kids hanging out. So it's a great way to socialize. Let's talk about more attainable everyday ways to socialize. Today, we're specifically focusing on horizontal versus vertical socialization. So let's start off with a description of each, if these are new terms for you. Horizontal socialization is socialization that happens in same age, same stage type groups or surroundings. So this would be classrooms, grade level teams, or age level teams, like if you're signed up to play the 12-year-old soccer group, or age segregated clubs. And that might even straddle a year or two, but this is the 10 and 11-year-old chess club or something like that. So within these groups, the kids tend to share parallel milestones or age or developmental quote unquote norms. I'm not a huge fan of the word normal. We did a whole book series in season 1 about normal sucks, but for lack of a better term, we'll go with kind of those standard milestones that come there, things that are common in pop culture. Right now, it would probably be like K-pop demon hunters and whatever else kids.
7.
What's that? I don't even know what that is. I keep breathing. I keep saying, like, I saw something from a teacher one day that was like, if one more kid said 6, 7, I'm like, I don't even know what this is. But anyway, that's horizontal socialization for you.
Yep. 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 Okay. And so then the other side of that is vertical socialization. And vertical socialization, this is going to be a hard episode. Like I'm already like, oh, how many times do I say that word and actually get it out? So this is the idea of mixed age groups, right? And that mixed age includes adults. It's not just kids. So you're talking siblings, maybe not if you're Meagan, because she had all of hers all right on top of each other. But in a lot of families, there's mixed ages there. Co-ops, a lot of times co-ops or drop-off type programs that you might do. There might be, like the elementary age, which is kindergarten to 5th grade. And then there's 6th to 12th grade. That's a big enough spread that you're talking a quite mixed age group there. Multi-age meetups, something like the pop-up that Meagan was just talking about, where it's all ages and it's not divided by teens and middle school and elementary school. It's just kind of all ages and they do all kinds of different things together. Apprenticeships, volunteering, these kinds of things where you're really working with an adult overseer kind of thing. And even just general community life, like where you live in your own neighborhood or in your own building complex, that sort of thing. So in this case, the emphasis is, again, kind of that idea of role models, modeling up or modeling down, mentoring, leadership, and just real world roles and social dynamics.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and this stuff is important. It has a huge impact on our kids because the way the traditional school system is set up in the United States and most other countries, not all, but most other countries, is not the template for all human social interaction going forward. I mean, we wouldn't even be friends. Amanda and I are not the exact same age. So we would not have ever come across one another because I'd be in the group for the 44-year-olds and Amanda would be in her group. And it would be like, well, we can't hang out together because we're not the same age. So yeah, I mean, it makes a big difference. And preparing them for a world where they will interact with people of all ages. I mean, you talked about multi-age meetups. Right now, one of my kids, my 16-year-old, is out at some group of yarn lovers. They crochet, they knit, it's embroidery, anybody who does things with yarn, basically. And they're having a meetup tonight at a restaurant and people bring projects and they work on them. She's the only kid there. She's totally the only kid there. But yeah, I mean, to just be able to slip in and integrate into those groups is really powerful.
Yeah, no, totally. I might have mentioned it before, but not that long ago on social media, I saw a meme or something like that. And it was a picture of an actress that is my generation. And she was hanging out with a much older actress. And both of them were well known. And now, of course, I can't remember either of their names. But the saying with it was something along the lines of, let's normalize intergenerational friendships. And I was like, that is so true. I mean, I get it. When you're parenting and you're in the thick of parenting, it makes a lot of sense to have friends who are also in the thick of parenting, because then you're not always like, no, I can't go out on Friday night because I'm in the thick of parenting, like, but at some point, those things matter less. And in that vein, just a week ago, I'm no longer on the board. I talked a lot in previous episodes about how I was on the board in my HOA building. I'm not on the board anymore, but there was a woman on the board with me who is definitely older. She's older than my mom, though I have a very young mom. But we were always friendly. And I reached out to her and I was just like, hey, you want to go for a walk and grab a coffee? I'd love to catch up, because we used to see each other so often and talk about things. And it was always around the building specifically, but we got to know each other. I mean, I was on the board for 7 years. Of course, I got to know her. She was on there almost as long. And we went and had a lovely time. It was really nice. And I was like, there's no good reason that I shouldn't be able to just reach out and have a coffee with her. We really, of course, we talked about different things than I might with someone who's got another 11-year-old or someone who's maybe got a 5-year-old, but it was still things I enjoyed talking about. We talked travel and where they're headed to next and what they're doing. And she talked about her grandkids. I talked about my niece and nephew. I mean, like it was a great conversation. And it's that thing. Real life is mostly vertical. Families, workplaces, your local community, boards that you're on, neighborhoods, community organizations, even faith groups, if you're in something like that. It's mostly vertical with all different ages, and your ability to have a conversation with someone who is older than your parents without being like, "Oh, I'm not going to talk to them. What do they have to talk about?" Or for a kid to be able to go in and just talk with an adult instead of being like, I'm supposed to be seen, not heard. Hopefully, if you're
Mhm,
listening to our podcast, you're not still thinking that we're supposed to see children and not hear them. This is
mhm.
real life.
Yeah, when you say you're gonna homeschool, the number one thing is that they won't be spending their entire day in a room with other 11-year-olds. How will they ever function in the real world? It's like, "Are you hearing that? Are you This doesn't make any sense." I mean, and so kids do need time with their peers. Maybe not necessarily exactly 16 but teens, if you have a teenager, like a teen group. Last night, one of mine, she's in a teen WhatsApp group for kids who live in Lisbon here that are not not Portuguese. And one kid was like, "Anybody want to go get Vietnamese?" And so they went out. I don't think they were all exactly 16 years old like she was. So you probably had 15, 16, 17 in there. But, so same age peers, and then time in mixed age communities as well. And a lot of times, kids who are in a traditional learning environment are so jam packed that they don't get that time for the mixed age community because they're in school all day, which is same age community. Then they go to soccer, they're in Girl Scouts, and it's just more of that all the time. And their schedule is just a maze of Tetris that they don't have time to fit in some of those mixed age communities as often. So, what is considered societally the gold standard for education might not actually be. Saying.
And we're all shocked that Megan said that. No, I mean, hopefully you're picking up what we're putting down here. We are not advocating for one type of socialization exclusively. That's not the goal. What we're trying to say is that both are important, and one of them happens significantly more in homeschooling, and a combination of that, a nice balance of that is a good thing. So let's get into the pros and cons of both horizontal and vertical socialization. So horizontal, again, that's same age. That's what you see in a classroom where everyone has to have a birthday between September of this year and August of the next year. So the pros, in some cases, it makes for an easy friendship fit. I mean, they're not going to like all of the kids in their classroom, but it's much more likely that they're going to find someone that they get along with because they're the same age and they do a lot of the same things. Shared interests, again, pretty easy to assume that for a lot of kids, again, not all kids, but for a lot of kids, they're playing the same kind of Minecraft or collecting the same Pokemon cards or whatever the case may be. They're kind of doing the things at the same time. They're in the same place. There's practice with grade level norms. Again, whether we like it or not, it's a reality. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That is a pro to be able to connect with other people that are in the same place developmentally, just generally. We're all going through puberty and our parents are stupid. And, you know, it, that's okay. It's an important part of growing up. And then team identity. It's kind of one of those things. There is much to be said from a developmental standpoint of the importance of having that connection with other people and that kind of team identity. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't need to be just that, but there's nothing wrong with that and helping facilitate that in your own homeschool, your own family life. That said, there are cons to this as well. So the reality is, mixed in with all of those things, you also have conformity and peer pressure. Definitely. I just this past week at the drop off program, the person who oversees the drop off program was like, "Oh, your kiddo doesn't have a lot of friends. He doesn't want to get really close with a lot of the kids. He's always friendly and he's always helpful and he definitely participates, but he hasn't made any close friendships." And I'm like, "Well, I'm well aware of that. But in fairness, he comes by it honestly. If he likes someone, he likes them. And if he doesn't, he's very kind and he makes them an acquaintance. And it doesn't go further than that because why waste your time on someone that you're like, not really my people?" You know, like, does he have to become friends with someone just because they're there and they're together and he should? No. And I don't want him to succumb to that kind of peer pressure.
Mhm.
There's the comparison traps. We talked about this so many times. We talked about it just in last week's episode. Oh, my kiddo is behind because they're not doing all of this. Or, oh, my kiddo's ahead because they're doing this. And there's nothing wrong with kids who are behind the curve or ahead of the curve. There's a curve. There's no getting around the fact that there's a curve in everything. But you don't need to compare. You need to be working with your child and making sure that they are taking small steps forward. Progression is what matters. It's not progression compared to someone else. It's just forward movement for them wherever they are. That's what matters. You have narrower conflict styles. It's a lot harder to learn how to resolve conflict in a wide range of situations and a wide range of personalities when you only ever know what it's like to fight with someone who's exactly your same age and has the same limited skills that you do. You're not learning a lot from that. An age-segregated view of, again, normal. We talked about it multiple times already in this episode. Normal. And why does normal matter? And why are we letting this idea of conformity and peer pressure influence our kids into feeling like this is normal, this is what 9-year-olds are doing, and this is normal, and not.
True.
Wow. That's one of those
Well,
things you can throw that out with the bathwater.
and that goes back to the episode I referenced earlier about the one we did back in season 1, why are homeschooled kids called weird? And sometimes it is that thing where they don't feel the need to conform to peer pressure because they're not feeling it. So you'll have a kid that doesn't care if they're wearing the latest whatever shoes or the brand name this or what, because they're not living in that same world. And then because that's what's become typical, our kids by default seem strange or weird because they just don't interact the same way, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. So,
Yeah, no, for sure. And we've already discussed it, but this idea, again, this horizontal examples of that, again, are the rec league soccer team that's all 9-year-olds, or the 4th grade classroom party, or the age-specific camps. Maybe it's not at your actual town, but you sign your kiddo up for 4th grade scouting camp or whatever it may be. Those are examples of this horizontal thing. And again, they're not bad. And we're not saying that you shouldn't facilitate and cultivate these kinds of opportunities for your kiddo. We are saying it's not the only type of socialization. And it's really short-sighted to focus on just that type of socialization.
mhm. Yeah. All right. So, vertical socialization, let's do the same thing. Pros, leadership chances for older kids if they're in a mixed age group. I know when my daughter danced years ago, they had big sister, little sister type things where I forget what they called it exactly, but it was that concept. I had big sister, little sister when I was in school. So it pops into my head. But when you were, I think, a junior in my high school, you got a freshman and you were supposed to check in on your freshmen and make sure they were okay and answer questions for them and try to fit them in socially and try to include them and be a friendly face that if you passed them in the hallway, you always said hello. So kind of things like that, but on a wider scale than just a 2-year age gap. You would have other things where maybe your kiddo's been playing chess at the library drop-in social for the past couple of years, and now they're a teenager. And so the person who organizes it says, hey, can you help the little kids learn XYZ, or pull them aside and help them with a couple of opening game moves or something like that. And it's a great way for those kids to develop those skills. So yeah, language and social growth for younger kids by being exposed to older kids and hearing the way they interact, the way they carry themselves, their vocabulary choices, the way they communicate. even if the younger kids aren't consciously picking up on those things and going, I should incorporate that word into my vocabulary, it somehow just will. It'll somehow start to kind of slip out because they pick it up organically. I mean, we hear all the time, kids are sponges. They are. And so they're picking up on all that stuff when they're in those mixed age groups. So yeah. Empathy, both going up and going down, where we see people who are experiencing life with others who are older than them, younger than them, differently abled than they are, differently wired than they are, whatever the case might be, and a much wider scale. And it gives them much more perspective on the world as a whole, which is very diverse. So only knowing the 12-year-olds that are in your class necessarily won't give you that thing. Real world etiquette with adults, 100%, right? I know with my kids when they were little, before I knew we were going to interact with adults, I would always kind of coach them or prep them like, please don't give one word answers, right? If somebody says, how's school going? The answer isn't good. Or how was this? Good, fine. Those are not the answers that we're going to give. And we would kind of practice those things. I think one of the biggest things, I know when my kids were younger, one of the things we focused on, and I still see it in their actions today, which makes me like, yes, they got it, is when you're out and about and you see somebody who's older, who's maybe moving a little bit more slowly, or maybe they have a mobility aid, for them to give this person a little bit more space, to be patient, not to walk right behind them where they're going to feel pressure maybe to speed up and have to walk at a certain pace that might be safe or comfortable for them. These are things that come in these mixed age groups really brilliantly. And you've also got more flexibility for neurodivergent kids in these situations. I was thinking about it when you were doing the thing about horizontal, and my youngest kid was coming to mind where I was like, this is a terrible fit. This is a terrible fit. This is a terrible because sometimes our neurodivergent kids need a little bit more time to mature socially, where they might be dysregulated socially a little bit longer than a neurotypical kid might be. But then on the flip side, some of those kids might also be wildly advanced and accelerated academically. And so you're in this position where they're trying to fit in with the fourth grade crowd, but their intellect is at a ninth, 10th, 11th grade, but their ability to handle a setback is more like first or second grade. And what a recipe for disaster. Whereas in a mixed age group, there's going to be a lot more flexibility for that to occur.
No, absolutely. Well, we had talked about it in a previous episode, but this past summer, my kiddo did a book club that you host, and it's with mostly teenagers. And he's not quite a teenager. He's definitely a tween now. It was his first time doing something being that much younger than everyone else. But he's a voracious reader and he loves history. And he really enjoyed the opportunity. He was a bit anxious going into it. Like, what if these teenagers don't like me? What if they're mean to me when they call me a little kid or those kinds of things? But afterwards, he was like, oh, it was so great. Like, we just talked about the book. All we did was just like talk about the things and they got it. He would struggle with kids his own age. They would not likely know the same amount of history and be as into the book, especially about the resistance women. I mean, if we're going to talk stereotypes, and it was a great opportunity for him. We all want to find our people. Like we all want to find our people, kids, grown-ups, all of us. And the reality is finding our people is not as simple as looking up everyone who's your age and being like, you must be my people.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see your kid walk up to other 11-year-olds and be like, would you like to discuss the rise of fascism in 1929 in Germany? And they'd be like, huh? But in book club, it was great because other people were there to also discuss the rise of fascism. And so he was right in it. And I know he didn't necessarily know to trust me, but like I knew the kids who were signed up because I'd had them all before and I knew they were kind and they were all homeschooled kids. So they were used to this type of socialization. And most of them have younger siblings. And so they were used to mixed ages and stuff like that. So I wouldn't have thrown him into the deep end either and been like, hey, he can come to class if I thought he was going to get torn apart. But it was lovely having him.
Yeah. And that's part of it too. We have talked about it in other episodes as well, but this idea that kids are taught that school and same-age socialization and all of these things, they come with all of this stuff like bullying and that this stuff is just a natural part of life. And that's what you have to. And I mean, I'm not trying to make his life insanely easy. He's got a lot of things going on. We've got a lot of things going on. The world is burning down around us. Life is not insanely easy. But also, I don't believe that he needs to be bullied just as a rite of passage, as part of growing up. And I'm not going to put him in a situation like that. But it's so much harder if you're just in a brick and mortar school, you're following along with these things. As homeschoolers, we have this opportunity to pick and choose places where they can fit in and they can find their people, even if their people are a little different.
Well, and you've perfectly segued us to one of the cons of vertical socialization is that you do have to go out and find it. It doesn't just happen. You don't walk down to the neighborhood school at the end of your block and say, I have a 5-year-old. And they go, great, we have a whole group of 5-year-olds. Put that one with the others. Not that simple. So it is a matter of finding opportunities where you know your kiddo is going to like the subject matter. And then you knew that I was teaching it and I knew who these kids were. But if not, you'd have to ask some questions maybe and reach out to the teacher. He's a little bit younger. Is this okay? How are the other kids in class? Will they be receptive? Is this an environment that you think would be good for him? So there is a little bit more work to be done on us when it comes to vertical socialization. So that can happen. The other thing that we have to make sure of too is that our older kids aren't dominating, because without structure, I don't think they mean to be assholes about it, right? But they've gotten this confidence and they've gotten these leadership skills throughout their time, and they just kind of go, okay, well, this is chaotic, so let me step up and do something about it, and they will. So making sure that our older kids also have the tools to see who's shying away, who's not being included, and make sure that they're being included, or for our younger ones to try and build those skills to be able to insert themselves, which is really, I mean, there's grownups that struggle with that. So it's tough for kids to be able to do that. So us really having to practice that over and over again and acknowledge when they're doing it and give them pointers on how to work into a social group where they might be on the younger end of the spectrum. And then there might also be fewer rites of passage, if you will, that are associated with same grade things, whether it's 5th grade promotion to middle school or prom or homecoming or whatever. Some people are super tied to those. We never really have been. So this one isn't like a huge struggle for me. But yeah, I mean, if those things are important to you, they can still happen. My kid went to prom last year. I have 3 kids. One of them was interested in prom. The other 2, not so much. Totally fine. But for those who are interested, those opportunities exist. They are there. But again, it's not a matter of somebody sending you an email and saying, sign up for this thing, and you click a button and you make a payment and it's done. There's a little bit more work to it in the homeschool world or in the vertical socialization world. So, yeah.
I do think that this is another one of those examples that it's really important to make sure that you're checking yourself. And I always say deschool, 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 but this is an example where you have to check yourself. For me, I know that I was really like, well, I don't know. I loved middle school dances. And my kiddo is not going to be in a situation where he's going to go to a middle school dance. We have a tween teen dance that he could go to, but he's not really friends with anyone in that group. So he's not interested in it enough to want to go by himself and experience that, which made me feel a little like, well, like, what do I do? And how do I need to facilitate this? What should I do? And then my husband was like, yeah, no, never went to a school dance, never wanted to go to a school dance. Don't make me go to a school dance. Don't make him go to a school dance. And I was like, this is totally one of those things where what I liked and what I experienced, I'm projecting onto a kid who doesn't feel the same way for his own reasons, and having to remember to take that step back and remember, like peer pressure, same age peer norms, these kinds of things. Don't let outside things decide what you do for your kiddo. It's not easy.
Yeah. So vertical socialization opportunities would be things like multi-age co-ops, sibling projects, unit studies. We build unit studies. Hey, they're fantastic if we do say so ourselves. There is stuff in our unit studies for peanuts up to seniors in high school and to adulthood. And we categorize things not necessarily by age or by grade level, but just ascending to descending. Here's where to start if you have peanuts. And then as you go, things get a little bit more advanced and a little bit more mature. And so you can find your your challenge point or your friction point and figure out where you want to jump in and jump out. But things like that are great because everybody's kind of working on the same project, but at their own level, and your older ones can help the younger ones, etc. Awesome sauce. Library volunteering, especially right now as we're deconstructing libraries like mad, they love volunteers. They absolutely love volunteers. And the library is one of the greatest cross sections of humanity that you will come across. You're going to have elderly people coming in with their needs being different than somebody who's just learning how to read. You're going to have job seekers who are coming in who are needing help with resume services. You're going to have people coming to vote at the library when there's elections going on. The whole world centers around the library in so many really cool ways, which is pretty awesome. Other things like maker spaces, community theater, chess clubs, things like that that are intergenerational. Amazing. All awesome opportunities. And they exist. It's just a little bit more work to find them. We understand that. And it's like, great, one more thing for me to do because I wasn't drowning already, but totally worthwhile if you can squeeze it in. We get it. I mean, we told you this was going to be real world homeschooling. We get it. We're tired too. We totally get it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And a lot of this letting go of these concerns around socialization, a lot of that is just about like deschooling and really getting a good understanding of why you're choosing to homeschool, what you're letting go of, what you're moving forward with. And if you need some extra work with that, some extra practice, we've talked about it before, but we covered that really extensively in our online course on our 101, How to Homeschool, the No Panic Bootcamp. We go into it quite extensively there. We talk about it some in our preschool and kindergarten reimagined, this idea that sending your kiddo off to preschool or kindergarten doesn't have to be this like gut wrenching, I'm sending them off to this thing and we're all in tears and now they're coming home as a peanut with homework packets. It doesn't have to be that. They're super affordable. They come with this great workbook that you can print out or you can buy it, unfortunately, on Amazon because that's the world we live in, but you can buy the workbook to work through, but it comes free with the course as well. These are great, great, great opportunities for you to unpack these things and figure out how you're going to move forward in the way that works. Again, for your kiddo, we keep saying it, but homeschooling means you get to make sure that your kiddo is making forward progress wherever they are. And we really want to help with that. We want you to feel really confident in doing that. So obviously, keep listening and take what you can. But if you have the time and the inclination, the courses are really, really solid. I love an online course. I think I just talked earlier this episode about how I'm going to do an iPhone one. So I'm probably a little biased there, but a great online course can be so helpful. So the info is in our show notes. It's on our social media. It's pinned in Instagram. If you go look at like images, there are links and stuff like that. It's easy to find, but we would love to have you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think having the workbook completed too is really helpful for when you later have the doubt moments because you can open that back up. I mean, there's things in there about why you're homeschooling, what you're choosing to leave behind, what you would like to design going forward. So then when you're on your journey and you feel like you're veering off course or you're doubting what you're doing, you've got this roadmap that you've built. I mean, it's like if you start a business, I have a business degree. So when you go to school for that, you do all the like SWOT analysis, like strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, like all that kind of stuff, right? And you lay out a business plan. Hopefully, no one is just like, I'm going to open a froyo shop with zero plans. I mean, you're going to sit down and you're going to make a full-fledged plan that you have that when you start to get these wild ideas about, I want to do this, or I want to do that, or I want to change this, it's like, hold on, does this fit in with our business plan? If it really means that much to me, is it worth changing my business plan to incorporate this thing? So really homeschooling, I mean, this is your kids' education. So having a quote unquote business plan for your kids' education going forward, as opposed to just kind of like asking in Facebook groups and being like, hey, what do you think I should do? And you get like 100 responses and you just kind of pick one. It's like, I don't know. I like a set plan. I really do. I like a plan. So for me, that would be way too much. I couldn't, but to each his own. But for me, I would not be sleeping well at night if that was the plan.
The plan was to have no plan. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Chaos 24/7. It's going to be great.
No, thank you. Medication for that. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
Okay, so how about we kind of wrap up this episode with a rapid fire myth busting kind of back and forth. So we'll takes turns kind of overcoming these common socialization objections or things that people are going to throw at you, whether they should or not. Okay, so first, most common, school equals socialization. And that gets said in so many different ways, but we all know what they mean and that's what they're getting to. My biggest thing would be, again, we've said it over and over and over. How many times are you told in school that you're not here to socialize? And you get in trouble for passing notes and they're cutting recess and you don't have time to talk at lunch because if you talk at lunch, you don't actually get to eat your food. And they have people walking around telling kids to stop talking at lunch and make sure that they're eating and all this kind of stuff. Like, when is this socialization happening, first off? And then second off, like we've talked, this whole episode is about the fact that that kind of socialization, it's good, but it shouldn't be the only thing. And if your kiddo is at school for 8 hours a day, and then if they're at the aftercare program, and then they've got extracurriculars that are same age, when are they having time to do the vertical socialization? Would you have anything to add?
Yeah, well, I was laughing so hard when you said, like, we're not here to socialize because I had a very religious education. So we had the smacking with the rulers and all that kind of stuff. It's not allowed in most educational worlds. But I have a very good friend who I'm still friends with to this day. We're both 44 years old. She's got like 900 degrees. She's got a PhD and all kinds of stuff. And we got in trouble in school so much for talking. I cannot even tell you. To the point she lives in New York. And every time I'm in New York, we go for dinner or whatever. And almost always it comes up that Miss O'Rourke, who was our Latin teacher and our history teacher, threatened to throw books at us if we didn't shut up. She was just like so done with us. And she was like, I'm going to throw a book at your head if you don't stop talking. And I'm like, when else are we supposed to socialize, right? Like, I'm Latin boring and I'm filling my time with something I actually enjoy. So, but it didn't go over very well. So I would like to start off by prefacing that my usual objection to some of these things would be something along the lines of like, that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. And if you don't understand homeschooling, you shouldn't comment on it. But I'm going to assume that we're going to be nicer about these things.
But you don't have to be.
Yeah, you don't have to be.
We're given the polite option, but you can also just say, F you and walk away. Or give them that look of like, you're so stupid, I can't even be bothered to.
Like, what an idiotic question. I mean, for me, the biggest issue that I had with socialization in school was all of the things that you said. But then on top of it, the school that my kids went to for their very short stint in public school was the most homogenous pool of socialization on top of everything else. So we lived in a very privileged area in South Florida. So they were not getting a lot of diversity when it came to socioeconomics whatsoever. It was very typical for these kids to be flitting off here and doing this. And all of them had annual passes to Disney World. And this is the real world. There was no diversity as far as that was concerned, because the school is zoned for this little radius around the building. And all of the homes around the building cost the same amount of money. So you didn't really have that there. And then from our perspective, where we were in South Florida, the vast majority of the school was Hispanic, my kids included, because my husband was born in Venezuela. And so you didn't even have diversity among cultures or ethnicities or anything like that. I mean, if you want to say Venezuelan versus Colombian as different, there is a difference in a little bit of the language, but this is not what I would call diversity. So where exactly are they getting these great socialization skills from when everybody who's in the school is basically a carbon copy of themselves? So beyond shut the fuck up, that would be my response to that objection.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Everyone wants their kid to be in a good school. Like, they want their neighborhood school to be, quote unquote, a good school by whatever metrics and standards. But the reality is, the vast majority of the time that a school has a good score on great schools or niche or wherever you're looking, it's because it lacks that kind of diversity, right? There's not diversity in socioeconomic status and backgrounds and just ethnic backgrounds, all of those things. Lack of diversity. I would hope that if you're listening to our podcast, you're listening to us, you can automatically be like, oh yes, I can see how that's not ideal.
All right, another one. Homeschoolers are so isolated. Ugh. during the pandemic was the worst. Like, oh, we're all homeschooling now. And I'm like, no, you're not. This is not homeschooling.
We're
It's
all hiding and trying to
right.
survive. It's not homeschooling.
Not at all homeschooling. And I think so it's interesting because in the UK primarily they use the term home educating because they don't like the school association word where it's like, but we're not trying to do school at home. We're trying to educate our children. We're trying to learn. We're trying to grow. So they've lost the school word primarily there. But the home word is also kind of a problem too, because it insinuates that we live in these isolated bubbles and our kids never really leave the house. I mean, we try not to overschedule. That's kind of one of our big things in life. None of us function as our best selves in my family when we are overscheduled. But I know homeschool parents who are never home, right? They're like, they live in their minivans we're at Spanish, we're at Scouts, we're at piano, we're at dance, we're at co-op, we're here, we're there. Thursday, we have this co-op. Tuesday, we have nature group. I mean, holy macaroni. Again, if you don't know anything about homeschooling, shut up because we are not home and we are not isolated. But you might need more in your arsenal than just shut up. So what would you say, Amanda?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's easy enough for us to be able to give our own experience. And it's the same. My kiddo is a bit of a homebody, and it's hard for me to be out and going and going and going. And just this week, we were like, do you realize that 3 days of the school week, we have to get in the car and go somewhere to take him to something that he's committed to? And it's not a one-on-one, like he's going to join things. And then one of the 2 days we don't have to, he's online for 2 classes with other people. We only have 1 day that we get to pretend like we stay at home and isolate. So we're not, yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
I think my thing would just be there are probably some families and people who do it that way. There probably are. I don't know any of them. I sure don't know any of them.
Exactly. Yeah. And those are the ones that are bubbling their kids away from the world because it's scary and dangerous and heathen and evil and all that kind of stuff. Those kids have a lot bigger problems than socializations. I mean, we see them all. There's threads of them recovering on Reddit. All the Duggar girls have podcasts where they're like talking about how hard it was to put on a pair of pants. They have a lot bigger problems. So they're thankfully recovering, which is amazing.
Yeah. All right. So the last one we've got, wellness, age, peer culture. Okay. If you haven't already figured this out, first off, age peer culture is not all it's cracked up to be. I mean, truly, I don't know. Maybe if you're listening and you're like, all of my best friends were in my same class at school, like, okay, great for you. And I'll say when I was in school, my best friend was older than me. And so, yeah, it sucked when she graduated and went off to college and I was still stuck in that town. But that's the reality. And then I ended up becoming friends with some kids, teens who were much younger than me. And so I did the same thing to them when I graduated and I went off to college and never came back. Life is not just about like, oh, I'm only friends with people who are juniors in high school. That is not real life, first off. And it wasn't when you were in school either. But also, if you want that, it is not that hard to find those kinds of things. Society in general is set up for that. You try to find a multi-age sports club to put your kid in. I wanted my kiddo to go to the chess thing at the local library, and it was all a bunch of older people. And I was like, well, we better probably do some like tournaments and some like play not on the computer with like real life people that are the same age before you go jump in with a bunch of old dudes who may or may not be so open and accommodating. Much easier to find things for kids his age and tournaments that are his age than it is to find all ages things where he's welcome. It's not hard to find age peer culture opportunities.
I was looking for a chess group here for my 13-year-olds who'll be 14 next month. And there's one on Meetup and they meet and it looked really cool and all this kind of stuff. But then I looked at the location and it was in something that was like something and bar or whatever, which I'm not opposed to. I'm not like a Puritan or anything. But then I looked and it was like 18 and over only. I was like, right, which he's certainly not passing for. But yeah, it is easier to find others. But the trouble for him is he's in a high school chess club now. And even then he has trouble finding kids that are his level for chess, right? So he wants to play with people who are older and all that kind of stuff. I mean, He takes lessons with this grandmaster guy who's like a chess guru from Russia or something. And he likes that. But I'm like, it would be fun if you could find some people in real life that you could play with him, whatever. But so far it hasn't happened. And he's okay. And again, to your point about deschooling, that's a me issue, not a him issue. He's perfectly content. And I'm like, wouldn't it be great if you could go find some chess friends? He's like, I don't know why you're stuck on this, but okay.
No, it is. And like if you're listening to us and you're like, oh, they've so got it together. Like we don't. We struggle with these same things. We have to come back to the basics about these same kinds of things. Like, okay, again, this is a me thing. This is me putting my expectations and what I think is good. And like, yeah, there are times when as the adult, like just this week we had to have that conversation. Like, look, at the end of the day, I do take your opinions and your thoughts and your ideas into consideration, and I care. But at the end of the day, I am the grown up here, and there will be some things that I just say, this is how it is. And you might not understand it. You might not agree with it. But it's not going to be about all of the things. It's one of those, we're breaking generational trauma. We're doing things better. We have to be careful about these things. It's all a work in progress.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a great comeback for they'll miss age peer culture because I think
None of your kids want it.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? I think I would just be like, no, they won't. Like none of my kids are, I mean, if you're watching on the video, my eyes kept like shifting to the side a little bit at points while Amanda was talking because my daughter's been texting me. So I think I said at the start of this episode that she's at some group for yarn people. And so she texted me and she was like, some of us are going to go get some dinner when we're done here, but I'll send you a pin. And I was like, okay. I mean, it's 10:30 at night. So yeah, she'll be out with adults and having dinner, but they all have yarn in common. They all love fiber. So go have fun, have the best time ever. I mean, I'm like, she's not missing. She does have one kid who's 1 year younger than her. So I consider that an age peer because of close enough, who is also a fiber nerd who she can chat fiber with all day, every day. And so she does have that. But, and we would miss him as a human if he didn't exist, but I don't know that we would miss age peer culture per se if that didn't exist. So I don't know. I think my response would just be like, no.
Yeah, and they'll like what they like, and they'll find people who like those same things, and that's good enough. When you decided that you had a hobby, were you like, I have this hobby, and I will only do things around my hobby with people who are 1 year older or younger than me? Like, no, you found a hobby and then you found people you clicked with who had the same hobby. And as adults, sometimes they're 20 years younger and sometimes they're 20 years older. And yes, obviously you want to be careful with your kiddos. You don't want your kiddo doing everything with people who are 30 and 50 years older that you're like, whoa, this is not like, I mean, there's parental involvement involved here, but like, it doesn't have to be like, you can only have a hobby with someone who is 1 year plus or minus your age.
Liam came home when we were living in South Carolina one time and he was like, so-and-so gave me this bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, really now? And I was like, so tell me more about this person. And I was like, so he just gave this thing to you? And he was like, he's nice. He's not like pedophile nice. He's just nice because I've been playing with him for ages. He taught me a whole bunch of stuff when I was new. He's nice. He's not a pedophile. And I was like, thank you. He already knew what I was after. One of my ears kept after. He's not a pedophile. But I mean, to your point about age peer culture, like I was saying last night, my daughter went out for Vietnamese food with a bunch of the teens that she's in this WhatsApp group with, right? My 17-year-old is in the same group. And I was like, are you going out for Vietnamese food? And he was like, no, I'm going to play Pokemon. So he went to play Pokemon with people who were like 20 to 40 years old, totally ditched the teens that were going out for Vietnamese food. He was happy. That's his preference. That's his choice. I'm like, go for it. Have the best time ever.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, what matters more to you, that they have age peer culture experiences or that they find people who share interest with them and appreciate them for who they are? I can't imagine that you are a Homeschool Moms Unfiltered fan and you listen to our podcast on the regular and you're like, no, I don't want them to find their people. I just want them to find this specific kind of group, whether they like them or not.
Exactly. Not a fan. Oh my goodness. All right, friends. Well, as Amanda said, if you do listen to us on the regular, or if you're new here, either way, we would love it if you would like and follow wherever you are listening, if it's iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, wherever else we broadcast our show to. Yeah, it's all algorithm driven and it puts us in front of more homeschoolers who are looking for community and looking for real world advice and trying to figure out how to overcome the stupid socialization thing that they get thrown at them all the time. So yeah, the more you like and follow, the more friends we get to make through our podcast, which is always awesome. So thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it.
I know if you're on social media at all or you listen to other podcasts, you're sick and tired of people always being like and follow. Do you see that button up there? Follow me, whatever. The unfortunate reality is everything is driven by algorithms. You know this. I've talked about it. I protect my algorithm at all costs. So I get it. But everything is driven by algorithms. And it's like, unfortunately, it's just important to like and follow the things that you do actually like because the world knows a lot about our listening patterns and habits, and it's how we reach new people and it gets out there and it is what it is. But yes, we do have a mantra for today. And today's mantra is real life is mixed age. So is great homeschooling.
Short and sweet and to the point and accurate. I like it.
There you go. Maybe that could have just been the whole podcast episode. Although people would have been like, wait, what details? What do you want me to do?
TLDR, your kids will be fine. They'll be better than fine. They'll be great. You're doing awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, thanks for joining us today, everyone, and happy homeschooling.
Yeah, have a great one.